On a sunny June afternoon in 2001, Emily Carter was supposed to walk down the aisle. The church was decorated with white lilies, her family was seated, and her maid of honor kept checking her phone, wondering where she was. Emily had texted just an hour earlier, saying she was on her way. Then, nothing. She never arrived. At first, everyone thought there had been some kind of delay, maybe a flat tire, maybe nerves. But when her car was found parked along the Old Ridge Trail, engine still running, purse on the seat, and her phone tossed in the back, people started to panic. The town of Cedar Springs was small. Disappearances didn't happen there. Within hours, search parties formed, helicopters flew over the woods, and police dogs combed the area. Still, there was no sign of her. Her fiancé, Ryan Carter, stood in front of news cameras that night, his eyes red, voice shaking as he pleaded for help. He said he loved her. Said he had no idea what could have happened. For 20 years, everyone believed him. But in 2021, a hiker stumbled across a forgotten cabin deep in the Cedar Ridge forest, a cabin no one knew existed. And what investigators found inside told a story very different from the one Ryan had told the world. Emily and Ryan Carter were the kind of couple everyone in Cedar Springs knew by name. They met in high school, she worked part-time at the local library, and he was the quiet kid on the football team who fixed cars with his dad after practice. Their story started like a classic small-town romance. Late-night milkshakes at the diner, drive-in movies, notes passed between classes. Everyone said they were meant to be. After graduation, Ryan stayed in town to take over his father's construction business, and Emily went to community college nearby. They never really left Cedar Springs. They didn't need to. Life there was simple. Summer fairs with cotton candy and Ferris wheels, Sunday mornings at church, barbecues in neighbors' backyards where someone always brought Emily's famous peach pie. When Ryan proposed at the annual 4th of July picnic, the whole town cheered. It felt like something out of a movie. He lifted her up in his arms, fireworks bursting overhead, and someone shouted, "High school sweethearts forever." But the people closest to Emily noticed things the rest didn't. The way she always checked with Ryan before making plans. How she stopped coming to her book club. How she'd smile when he called her name, but sometimes that smile didn't reach her eyes. One friend later said, Emily loved him, but sometimes she looked scared. Like she was walking on eggshells. Still, to everyone else, they were perfect, the kind of love story people in Cedar Springs like to believe in. A small-town girl, a loyal hometown boy, and a future that seemed unbreakable. But behind those smiles, something was already starting to crack. The morning of June 16, 2001, began like every bride's dream. Emily woke up early, sunlight spilling across her bedroom as a maid of honor helped her into her robe. The house smelled of hairspray, coffee, and excitement. She sent a quick text to her best friend. "I can't believe it's finally happening." By 10 a.m., she'd finished her hair appointment at the little salon on Main Street. Witnesses said she was smiling, humming a song, thanking everyone who wished her luck. She told the stylist she was heading home to grab her dress before meeting Ryan at the church. She never made it there. When Emily didn't show up for the ceremony, her friends assumed something small had gone wrong. A flat tire, a missing veil, maybe a quick stop to calm her nerves. But by the time the sun started to set, that hope turned to panic. Her car was found hours later near an old trail road just outside of town. The keys were still in the ignition. Her phone was tossed into the back seat. Her purse and shoes were gone. The next few days were chaos. Police officers combed through the woods. Helicopters hovered over the forest. Volunteers searched every creek, every abandoned property within miles. Flyers with her picture went up on every lamppost. Cedar Springs was shaken. No one had ever simply disappeared here before. Ryan Carter appeared on television, standing in front of their home, eyes red and voice trembling. "Emily, if you can hear me," he said, "please come home. You're not in trouble. We just want you back." His grief looked real. His tears looked convincing. But detectives began to notice things that didn't fit. Ryan claimed he'd been home all morning preparing for the wedding. Yet his phone records told a different story. Multiple calls were made from his number miles away from the house, near the same stretch of road where Emily's car was found. When investigators asked about it, his answers changed. That was when suspicion first crept in, quiet, uncertain, but time moved on, even though the town of Cedar Springs never really forgot. Emily's face stayed on the bulletin board at the grocery store long after most of the posters had faded. Every year on June 16th, her family gathered at the church where she was supposed to be married, lighting candles and praying that someone, somewhere, would come forward with answers. For a while, Ryan kept up appearances. He attended the vigils, spoke kindly about Emily, and thanked the community for their support. But within a few years, he sold their home and quietly left town. Some said he moved north, somewhere near Michigan. Others claimed he just wanted to escape the whispers, because in Cedar Springs, people had started to talk. The investigation grew cold. Detectives retired. Evidence was boxed away. New technology came, new cases took priority, and Emily Carter's disappearance became a story parents told their kids when they warned them not to walk alone at night. Still, every so often, someone would say they saw her, a woman who looked just like Emily, in another state, another life. Each lead ended the same way. Nowhere. 2 decades later, the story was nearly forgotten. That is, until the summer of 2021. A hiker wandering deep through Cedar Ridge Forest stumbled across something strange, a narrow trail, overgrown with vines, leading to a clearing no one had seen before. In the center stood a small wooden cabin, aged and quiet, as if the forest had been keeping it a secret all along. When investigators entered, they expected to find an old hunting shack. Instead, they found something else entirely. Inside was a journal, and beside it, a wedding dress, perfectly preserved, pressed, folded, untouched, as if it had been waiting all these years for a bride who never came home. When detectives stepped inside the cabin, the air was thick with dust and silence. Everything was untouched, as though time itself had frozen. Old furniture sat in perfect stillness, a rusted lantern on the table, and a faint smell of decay lingered beneath the scent of pine. They came expecting to find squatters or an old hunter's shelter, but what they discovered stopped them cold. Tacked across the wooden walls were photographs, dozens of them, all of Emily. Her wedding dress, her smile, her eyes. But in every photo, something was wrong. The background was dark, the lighting off, and Emily's expression wasn't joy. She wasn't smiling in any of them. Detectives began pulling the photos down one by one, realizing they weren't printed from a wedding album. They had been developed in secret, likely long after Emily disappeared. Each one seemed more unsettling than the last, capturing her from strange angles, like someone had been watching her for months before she vanished. On the table, under a layer of dust, they found a thick, leather-bound journal. Its first page was dated June 16, 2001, the day of the wedding. The handwriting was unmistakably Ryan Carter's. The first few entries read like love letters. She's finally mine. She said yes to forever. But as the pages went on, the tone changed. The words became darker. Possessive. Broken. One page in particular made the lead detective stop reading out loud. It said, "She said she wanted freedom. I promised she'd never leave me again." The entries detailed Ryan's obsession, how he followed her, how he planned a place where no one could take her away. The more they read, the clearer it became. The cabin wasn't a hiding place. It was a shrine. Every corner of that room told the same story, a love that had turned into something suffocating and sick. And for the first time in 20 years, the truth of what happened to Emily Carter was starting to take shape. Beneath the old cabin floorboards, detectives found what they'd feared most. The soil was freshly disturbed beneath the rotting planks, and within hours, the team uncovered the outline of a shallow grave. There, wrapped in fragments of fabric that once gleamed white, were the remains of a woman. Tests were run immediately. DNA confirmation came back days later. It was Emily Carter. After 20 long years, the mystery that haunted Cedar Springs had finally been solved. Emily had never left town. She had been here all along, buried beneath the cabin her husband built in secret. The news spread fast. Headlines called it the wedding that never ended. Others simply said, justice after 2 decades. For the people of Cedar Springs, it was the answer they thought would never come. Authorities tracked Ryan Carter to a quiet suburb just 40 miles away. He'd changed his name, remarried, and was living a quiet life as if nothing had ever happened. When police arrived at his home, he didn't resist. He just looked at them and said, "You found her, didn't you?" During interrogation, Ryan claimed it was an accident, that Emily tried to call off the wedding, that she'd said she wanted to leave, and he panicked. But the entries in his journal told a different story, one written over years of obsession. He had built that cabin long before the wedding, a place he called their forever. Investigators later discovered that Ryan had visited the site every year on June 16th. He'd left flowers on the table, sometimes even talked to the empty room as if she was still sitting there in her dress. For 2 decades, he'd lived with his secret, convincing everyone he was the grieving husband, while the truth sat buried just a few feet beneath his feet. In the end, Ryan Carter's life became the twisted reflection of his own promise. She would never leave him again. Ryan Carter was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The courtroom was silent as the verdict was read. Emily's parents held hands, tears falling, not from shock but from the heavy, quiet relief of finally knowing the truth. After 2 decades of searching, they could at last bring their daughter home. A week later, Cedar Springs gathered for a memorial service unlike any other. The same church that had been decorated for her wedding in 2001 was now filled with candles and photographs. Emily in her graduation gown, Emily with her friends at the fair, Emily smiling in her wedding dress one last time. Her family buried her in the small churchyard beneath a white oak tree, just a few yards from the spot where she was supposed to become a bride. The air was heavy, but peaceful. For the first time in 20 years, there was closure. The people of Cedar Springs never forgot the lesson Emily's story carried. What began as a love story, bright and full of promise, had become a warning about control, about silence, and about how quickly love can turn into possession. Ryan's name faded into prison records, but Emily's lived on in the town's memory. Each June, candles still burn in the square, flickering beneath her photo, a reminder of the life that was stolen and the truth that refused to stay hidden. Because no matter how long it takes, no matter how deep it's buried, the truth always finds a way out. If stories like this keep you up at night, don't go anywhere. Make sure you're subscribed and have notifications on, because next week we are diving into another chilling mystery. It started with a single 911 call from a terrified boy. Dispatchers heard him whisper, "They're here," before the line went dead. When police arrived just minutes later, the house was empty and the boy was gone. The case was never closed. Join us next time as we uncover the haunting mystery of the boy who called 911 and then vanished before police arrived.